I'm gonna attempt to pick up all the books I read in May just to show you. Here are all the books I read in May. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. My name is Reagan. I normally do book content and today's going to be another book video. Today I have for you my May wrap up. First, as always, let's go through some statistics. Oh my god, I knew that was gonna happen too. Let me tell you, this was not a normal month for me. This was abnormal. I read a lot more than I usually do, and I don't recommend reading this much, honestly, ever. It was a lot, and I didn't even mean to do it. It just kind of happened. I say this is one of those months where I have quantity over quality, and obviously I'd rather have quality over quantity. So I really do prefer the months when I read 10 good books versus this month where I read a lot of books, but I only found a few that I loved. With that being said, we're gonna go through statistics. I read 20 books this month and my average star rating was a 3.23. Future editing Reagan might give you a genre breakdown. I had a 9-book TBR in May and I believe I finished 6 of those 9. Honestly, that was pretty good. I normally can't stick to a TBR to save my life, and this month I read like 60%. We're gonna start out with the first book I read, and we're starting off with a bang because it was Summer Rental by Mary Kay Andrews and I rated this a 1 star. This might be my first 1-star read of the year. Honestly, very deserving 1 star if I'm telling the truth here. I understand books that have unlikable characters, and that is the point. I don't think we were supposed to dislike these characters. I think we were supposed to be rooting for them. Mary Kay Andrews typically writes for an older audience. Am I the person that this book was meant for? Probably not. However, regardless of the audience you're writing for, we should not be having homophobia. We should not be having racism. We should not be having anti-Semitism. We're following 3 friends who are on a beach trip. They're childhood friends. They've rented a house for the summer. The house is like really crappy and they're renting it from this guy who like lives in his garage. They meet this other girl who's on the run from her abusive money laundering husband kind of vibe. They are like, yes, you can stay with us. You can rent out the house, whatever. Ty, the guy who's renting out the beach house, has a little romance with Ellis, and it's just like following them and the whole mystery with our wife on the run, Marin. First of all, the romances in Mary Kay Andrews' books, I read one of her other books too and I felt the same about it. Our main love interest, we were supposed to like him, we were supposed to root for them as a couple. He was very like misogynistic. Things he would say about her, he would be like, out of her 3 friends, she was definitely the ugliest, but I still like her anyways. And we were supposed to root for him, and it wasn't like a dislike to lovers. I've ranted about this book for long enough. I was gonna give Mary Kay Andrews another try, but now that I'm thinking back on it, both of her books have done the same thing for me. Even though this is written for an older audience, it's written terribly and you can see the author's morality shine through in her writing and her characters, and I just cannot get behind it. So this will be the last book I read from Mary Kay Andrews. Next, I read one of my most anticipated reads of the year, which was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Everyone is loving this book. I am not in that group of people. I didn't hate it. I rated this a 3.5. Pretty average for me. Nothing stood out to me. This was definitely my least favorite Abby Jimenez book. I was in a little bit of a slump during the time of reading this, so could that have affected my rating? Sure. I just wasn't gripped like a normal Abby Jimenez book. I didn't care about the characters. I don't know. It just felt different than other Abby Jimenez books. Here are my notes that I wrote because I think they will convey what I'm feeling best because I wrote them while I was reading it. 1, I don't feel anything. 2, girl needs therapy. I stand by that. 3, I don't feel the tension. I didn't. I did not feel any romantic tension between them. I felt like they should have just been friends, and that was that. I was gonna rate this a 3-star, but I really like the cameos we got in this book from the other books, so it did bump that up to a 3.5 for me. I love seeing all of this interconnected standalone series like wrapped together. That was very satisfying. I don't know why. I think it was probably me and not this book. Everyone's loving it, so if you want to read it, please read it. I read Make Me by Tessa Bailey. This is the 3rd and final book in the Broken Beautiful Roommates trilogy by Tessa Bailey. I rated this a 3 stars. It is super duper short, so there's not a ton of room to like wow me. It was just meh. Like, it was a romance. It took up my time. This follows a construction worker in the friend group, Russell, and then Abby, who's like the rich girl. And the main issue in this was like the wealth gap and the wealth disparity. That was like the main conflict, which is fine. Very predictably what was going to be the 3rd act breakup. I wasn't going into this expecting something to blow me away. I was going into it wanting to finish the series and just have a short, quick, fun time. And that's exactly what happened. So I got what I asked for. Next, we have the first book that I read in my 24-hour readathon. If there is a single book that you pick to read out of this entire video, let it be this. This is one of my 5-star reads of the year. I love this. Mother and Lark is coming out in 4 days time and I am ecstatic. I went into this book knowing I was gonna love it. My expectations were completely met. I am in love with our main character, Rowan. The fact that I remember his name at all shows you how much I like this book. This follows 2 serial killers who agree to kill serial killers once a year in this competition. Tell me how Brittany Weaver made 2 serial killers redeemable. If you were a fan of the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey, read this. It was so good, and look at the cover. It's gonna be a trilogy, and if it just gets better from here, I am so excited. Next, I listened to an audiobook in my 24-hour readathon, and it was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, a memoir. I got it on the buy 2 get 1 free Target sale. I don't know much about Britney Spears, but I have really recently liked reading memoirs, especially celebrity memoirs. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads because I feel if you're brave enough to share your story, especially one like Britney's that has so much trauma involved, it's a small thing I can do to support her. If I was gonna rate this based on the writing and based on my enjoyment of the book, I would probably rate it a 3 stars. Probably half about the conservatorship, half about her earlier life, which is fair. I was going into it wanting to hear the most about the conservatorship. That was probably just a mis-expectation on my part. One thing I would say is by the end of this book, some of the ways she would talk about her family, I was like, girl, you need more therapy. You are being so forgiving to these people and I don't know why. Would I recommend it if you're a Britney fan? Sure. If you're not, maybe skip. Another thing that I hate about reading so many books in a month is that the wrap-ups are brutal, and honestly, I hate them. Hope you don't hate it though. I'm gonna try and speed through some of these too. I don't need to talk about Barbarian's Touch for 5 minutes. Next, I read Barbarian's Touch, also in the readathon. This is the 7th book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. If you know me, if you know my channel, I love this series. This is a comfort series for me. It's like brain rot. It's like scrolling on TikTok, but in a good way. It requires no brain power. It's just vibes. It's just fun. It's like ridiculous. I love it. You could not pry these books from my cold dead hands. This one follows Rokon and Lila, and Lila is deaf, so her living on a planet in which there are only aliens who don't speak English but also don't speak ASL. So she has a huge communication issue, and that's like a main conflict in the book. It was so cute, like always. I read it in one sitting like I always do, and if you're ever looking for just a fun time with some smut, some sci-fi, some blue men, this is what you should pick up. Sorry Not Sorry. You know how I literally said I don't need to talk about Barbarian's Touch for 5 minutes? I did though. The next book I completed is the 2nd book in the Natural series. Again, I read this in my 24-hour readathon. Actually do really love this series. Jennifer Lynn Barnes' other series, The Inheritance Games, it was meh. I didn't really care, but this one I care. I am loving this series. I rated this one specifically 4 stars. This one focused more on the character Dean. I just love the mystery element of this. I'm not going to tell you much of the plot because it is a spoiler for the first book. This series is about a group of teenagers who have been picked by the FBI to help on cases. They are naturally good at things like profiling, reading people's emotions, detecting lies, and so the FBI has chosen to use them on active and cold cases. It is like a young adult version of Criminal Minds. Next, I read Morning Glory Milking Farm, and this is the final book that I read in my readathon. If you have not seen me talk about this month, can I hold it backwards? I'm gonna hold it backwards actually. If you aren't a fan of the Ice Planet Barbarian series, you should not pick this up. Ice Planet Barbarians is like a gateway into monster romances. This is past the gate. You've entered. Like, take this with a grain of salt. Obviously, you can handle whatever you think you can handle. This is a little weirder. With that being said, I loved it. I'd honestly bump this up to a 4 stars. This follows our 2 main characters. This girl has just started working. She needs a job really bad. And in this world, there's like humans and then there's monsters, and they kind of live separately for the most part. And she's like, I really need a job. And the only job she can find right out of college to pay off her loans is a job at this milking farm. You can kind of use your brain to assume what happens at this milking farm. In this society, this is very much a health thing. It's like you're going to the eye doctor. So she's basically like a milking tech. And that's the only job she can find. And she's like, do I really have it in me to do this? Yes, I have to do this. I need the money. Like, I don't have anything else to do. I'll figure something out, but I need this job. I need a job. And one of her clients, obviously they end up falling in love. What I love about this series and this author, it's like reading a very well-developed romance book. There's plot, there's romance, there's no third act breakup. It's like slice of life kind of, just really well-developed characters. There's like these whole side issues. It's like an Abby Jimenez book in that like each character has their side issue. So it was like a really well-developed romance book, but just like not human. How I've been explaining it in the past is it feels like Gilmore Girls mixed with Halloween Town mixed with Vampire Diaries. If any of those sound good to you and you like I Spy Barbarians, let me hold your hand for this one. You should read this. Oh, I got this off of TikTok, by the way. I didn't just find this like scrolling through my, Amazon and I was like, ooh, let me buy this one. It was like I got some girl on TikTok and she was like, before I read this, after I read this. And I was like, I need it. The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. This is my first Ellen Hildebrand book. My grandma gifted this to me and I read it this month on audio. I rated this one a 2.5. This is basically about a wedding on Nantucket. The wedding party wakes up and finds that the maid of honor is dead, and so the wedding is delayed. There's this whole mystery plot around it. You have all these POVs of everyone trying to figure out who did it. It was fun, but I was a little bit bored, if I'm being honest. If I had read this physically, it probably would have been a DNF, which is why I picked up the audiobook. The Trouble with Hating You by Sajni Patel. I started this during my 24-hour readathon, didn't finish it. I finished it a few days later. This has been on my TBR forever and ever and ever. I finally got to it, and honestly, it was a really strong book. I was not expecting a lot because I haven't heard much about it, but that's I need to stop doing that because it's a wrong expectation to have when you go into a book. Just because you've heard no one talk about it doesn't mean it's not good. It was slow burn, enemies to lovers, and when I say slow burn, I mean slow burn like we didn't get a first kiss until probably 250 pages into the book. It's a 300-page book. It's about Jay and Laya, and their families have set them up for a dinner to like kind of feel out an arranged marriage, and Laya runs away from that dinner. She was like ambushed. She was like, I don't want to marry this guy at all, runs away. And so they kind of get off on the wrong foot and they genuinely dislike each other. And then like a few weeks later or a week later, Laya goes into her new job. Jay works there. I would recommend this if you've never heard of this and you're looking for a good summer romance. I would definitely say to pick this up. Next, I picked up Swift and Saddle, which is the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. These are just small little cowboy romances, and what really draws me to them is the cover. I rated this a 3.5. Weston is kind of working on this project on the ranch of like renovating the old house, trying to turn it into a B&B situation, and he hires Ada to be the interior designer. They meet at a bar a few nights before they're meant to start this project, and they hook up not knowing that they're going to work with each other. Weston like falls for her straight away. Ada is very slow to it though. She's like, no, we're at work. I wasn't mad at it. Some people like really don't like the insta love. I don't really mind insta love. If I'm being honest, like does not bother me unless it's like literally we see each other once and we say I love. I liked the ending. It was cute. It was fun. I read it in like about one sitting, and I would recommend if you're looking for a cowboy romance. It's very similar to the Chestnut Springs series. Next, I picked up The Alice Network, which is another book that my grandmother donated to me after she read. I liked this book. I thought it was pretty good. I think I gave it 4 stars. I would probably bump it down to a 3 or a 3.5, honestly. We're following a few different POVs in this book set around World War II. We have a past POV, which is like during the war. We have a spy. Her name is Eve. And then we also follow the present POV in which we have Charlie. Charlie has lost a relative in the war, and she's very determined to find out if this relative is alive or dead, and she ends up meeting up with Eve, and they kind of try and track down this relative together. And obviously Eve is like very traumatized from the war, so we're following these 2 different POVs. We also have some romance in here. No feelings were invoked. That sounds bad, but like I didn't really care much about the characters. World War II is always gripping to read about and see kind of the ins and outs of how that worked, because it's something that I cannot even fathom in this day and age because I'm so disconnected from it. I was interested, but I was not connected emotionally. I'm not a huge historical fiction person, so I could read this years later and be like, wow, this was really good, I just didn't know. Or like I could read this years later and be like, wow, that was terrible. Guys, don't fight me. Guys, don't be mad. Guys, don't be mad. I read the second book in that series, Sweet Berries by C.M. Nascosta. This, I will say, I didn't like this one as much. I think because of the type of creature it was, but it was a Mothman. I think it would have felt slightly different if it was a Batman. I don't know. It was fine. There was also like side trauma stuff like the first book where we had plot and we had side characters and we had these personal issues where we were exploring individually, but we also had the relationship. There was no third act breakup. It was a very well developed romance. I don't think I liked the characters as much, which is fine. Obviously, I'm not gonna love everything. I did rate this a 3. It was still a very solid and well written monster romance. I don't even know. If I were to recommend you one out of the 2 I've read in the series, I would definitely tell you to read the first. They just go quick and I love them. And you know, sometimes you just need something that you literally don't have to think through whatsoever. We are in the home stretch. I read A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. This is the first book in the Kane Brothers trilogy. This one was good enough to make me want to read the second one. I think the second one was better, but I rated this 3 stars. These are billionaire romances and revolving Huxley, Kane, and Lottie. Let me tell you though, something I will criticize about this book is I need different names. You can't be doing the thing and be like Huxley. No, I'm sorry, we need a nickname. It was just a fun time. Like, this is a book that I would say could be on Wattpad and be very successful. It was like that kind of writing. Was it serious in any way? No. Was the relationship or characters well developed? Probably not. I'd say the monster romances were developed better. Why did our main girl have a master's in business and was acting like a complete idiot in all of her meetings, like not knowing anything about business? Use your degree, sweetie. You have it. You can use it. You got this. It was like the bare minimum stuff of like how to act professional, how to dress in a business meeting, and she was coming in like completely clueless. I was like, girl, what did you do your entire master's degree? And Huxley too, he's like the CEO of like a multi-billion-dollar company, and he's like so clueless as to how business works. How did you get where you are? Let me tell you the plot and maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. We have Huxley Kane. He's trying to get this business deal. They have a real estate company and he's trying to make this business deal with this guy. This guy is not taking the bait, and Huxley's like, well, what do I do to get him to like make the deal with me? And his brothers are like, it's because you're not personable. You're like just about work and you have no other life. And he's like, oh, okay, got it. Makes up the fact that he has a fiance and that she's pregnant. And he's like, well, shit, I gotta find a fake fiance and a fake pregnant fiance real quick because I'm not gonna tell him the truth. He finds Lottie, who is in need of a job because she was just fired by her best friend. It was a very toxic relationship. Kind of work out this deal that's mutually beneficial. I think I said enough about this. We're moving on. Like I said, I also read So Not Meant to Be by Megan Quinn, and this is the second one. I liked it better than the first one. I rated this one 4 stars. There was some miscommunication issues which were pretty annoying in this. Honestly, I got over them. It was the same kind of thing like Wattpad writing, but I was just there for a good time, not a long time, and not a realistic time either. I could have seen the third act conflict like a mile away. These are so unserious, and I loved the guy in this one. The girl was kind of getting on my nerves a little bit. She was very much undervaluing the guy and undervaluing the relationship she had, and just like, just say it out loud, just speak. Just speak. This one was about JP, and Kelsey is the sister of the girl from the first book, and then JP is the brother of the guy from the first book. I love JP. I think that's what really did it for me. Huxley was like, okay, I couldn't get behind his name, but JP I could get behind. I would definitely recommend this series if you're looking for just like a fun time. I'm gonna pick up more of Megan Quinn's work. I really want to pick up the Highland one. Next, I read Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is going to be in a video coming up. I really enjoyed this one. I read this one in one sitting. I rated it a 4 stars. I want to read the next one so bad. I actually already bought the next one. It was slightly insta-lobby, but like I said, it didn't bother me. This is about kind of like a Romeo and Juliet situation where there's 2 rival families. They're kind of like mafia bosses. One's the Italians and one's the Irish. The Italian family in which we're kind of following ends up crashing one of the Irish daughter's birthday parties. They accidentally set the house on fire. It's this whole thing. As a resolution, the fathers get together and they're like, okay, we've had enough of this feud. We need to chill. And so the fathers set up this arranged marriage between our Italian mobster girl, and her name is Ada. And then we also have Callum, who is from the Irish side, and he's the oldest brother. I loved it. One of the things I love about this book is the family aspect. Number one, each brother and person had their own distinct personality already, and we've only had 300 pages of one book, not even. And we had art. Carved, which was also super fun, and it was in the Kindle version as well. I didn't know how much I needed a Mafia series in my life until I read it, and now I have, and now I know. I read Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. This was on my TBR for May. This was my monthly reread of the Throne of Glass series. I'm trying to reread the entire series this year. Ended up lowering my rating. I'm not going to explain the synopsis because I swear everyone and their mother knows. I originally had rated this 4 stars. I think I lowered it to a 3.5, but I'm kind of discovering that maybe it's just not my cup of tea, and that's okay. The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. This is one that's been on my TBR for a while. I'm not going to be picking up any more of her books. I'm not really a fan. This one kind of fell flat a little bit for me. It was 3 stars. It was like a chore to pick up. Basically, it's about these 2 characters. They meet at a wedding. One's a bartender and one is the brother of the bride. Kind of meet and they hook up and then see each other again on a dating app and decide that they're going to have a wager of whoever can find love first wins. They end up going on these dates and trying to win love, but kind of start dating each other on accident. I know a lot of people who love this book and love Lynn Painter as an author. I've just found out that her stuff is not for me. They just don't work for me. There's nothing objectively bad about them. They just don't work for me. I read Barbarian's Taming. This came out on the 28th of May. I read it in one sitting on the 28th. This is the newest release of the special edition covers, so I'm officially up to date on the series. Ruby Dixon released the next one, please, right now, because I have a rule I can't read them until the covers come out. This one follows the sister of the FMC from the 7th one that we talked about earlier, Maddie. It also follows Hassan. Hassan was actually the alien that stole Maddie's sister away and tried to force her to resonate for him. Sounds bad, right? They fall in love. It was fun. It was a good time. I rated this 3 stars. Not one of my favorites of the series, but not bad. It is way shorter than the other ones. Again, I'll read all of these whenever they come out because it's just falling back into a comfort show or falling back into a comfort movie. Same thing for me, falling back into a comfort series. Then we have All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the book that I pretty much read in one sitting. Finished it this morning. Today's the 31st. Love this book. It is the 3rd book in the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. We talked about the 2nd one earlier. I rated this one 4 stars as well. I love how this series is evolving, the bigger issues, and the plot is still continuing. I thought I was going to get bored after we followed the first case, but somehow they made it better, and then this one, it just got even better. And I need to read the 4th one right now. Again, I don't want to tell you anything about the plot because I don't want to spoil it, because at this point, if I tell you anything about what happens in this book, you're a little bit spoiled. I will say we follow a little bit more of Sloane and we follow a little bit more of Michael. If you haven't picked up the Naturals, please pick it up. It's so good. I love, love, love the series, and I'm glad and sad that I only have one more to read because I don't want the series to end, but at the same time, I cannot wait to read the next one. So guys, these are all the 20 books that I read in May. I don't know what came over me. Thank you guys so much for watching today's wrap up. Let me know what you guys read this month, and like if you read any of the same books as me, or if you have any thoughts on any of these books. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill. I love to see you guys comment. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope to see you in the next video, and I love you all. Bye.